Good morning to all of you. Today is 26th day of Bhagavad Gita, verses 30, page number 589. So, let's get started. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he properly situated in his determination. The word used in this verse is very significant and we should understand it properly. When a living entity is conditioned, he has two kinds of activities. One is conditional and the other is constitutional. As for protecting the body or abiding by the rules of society and state, certainly there are different activities even for the devotees in connection with the conditional life, and such activities are called conditional. Besides these, the living entity who is fully conscious of his spiritual nature and is engaged in Christian consciousness or the devotional service of the Lord has activities which are called transcendental. Such activities are performed in his constitutional position and they are technically called devotional service. Now, in the conditioned state, sometimes devotional service and the conditional service in relation to the body will parallel one another. But then again, sometimes these activities become opposed to one another as far as possible. As far as possible, a devotee is very cautious so that he does not do anything that could disrupt his wholesome condition. He knows that perfection in his activities depends on his progressive realization of Christian consciousness. Sometimes, however, it may be seen that a person in Christian consciousness commits some act which may be taken as most abominable socially or politically, but such a temporary fall down does not disqualify him. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that if a person falls down but is wholeheartedly engaged in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, the Lord being situated within his heart purifies him and excuses him for the abomination. The material contamination is so strong that even a yogi fully engaged in the service of the Lord sometimes because ensnared, but Christian consciousness is so strong that such an occasional fall down is at once rectified. Therefore, the process of devotional service is always a success. No one should deride a devotee for some accidental fall down from the idle path. For as explained in the next verse, such as occasional fall downs will be stopped in due course as soon as a devotee is completely situated in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a person who is situated in Krishna consciousness and is engaged with determination in the process of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, should be considered to be in the transcendental position even if by chance or accident he is found to have fallen. The words sadhu eva, he is certainly are very emphatic. They are a warning. They are a warning to non-devotees that because of an accidental fall down, a devotee should not be derided. He should still be considered saintly even if he has accidentally fallen down, and the word mantav yah is still more emphatic. If one does not follow this rule and derides a devotee for his accidental fall down, then one is disobeying the order of the Supreme Lord. The only qualification of a devotee is to be unflinchingly and exclusively engaged in devotional service. In the Nirishma Pran, the following statement is given. The meaning is that even if one fully engaged in the devotional service of the Lord is sometimes found engaged in abominable activities, these activities should be considered to be like the spots of resemble the mark of a rabbit on the moon. Such spots do not become an impediment to the diffusion of moonlight. Similarly, the accidental fall down of a devotee from the path of saintly character does not make him abominable. On the other hand, one should not misunderstand that a devotee in transcendental devotional service can act in all kinds of abominable ways. This verse only refers to an accident due to strong power of material connections. Devotional service is more or less a declaration of war against the illusory energy. As long as one is not strong enough to fight the illusory energy, there may be accidental fall downs, but when one is strong enough, he is no longer subjected to such fall downs. As previously explained, no one should take advantage of this verse and commit nonsense and think that he is still a devotee if he does not improve in his character by devotional service. Then it is to be understood that he is not a high devotee. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, I declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. This should not be misunderstood. In the 7th chapter, the Lord says that one who is engaged in mischievous activities cannot become a devotee of the Lord. One who is not a devotee of the Lord has no good qualification whatsoever. The question remains then, how can a person engaged in abominable activities, either by accident or by intention, be a pure devotee? This question may justly be raised. The saints as stated in the 7th chapter, who never come to the devotional service of the Lord, have no good quality, have no good qualifications, as is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Generally, a devotee who is engaged in the 9 kinds of devotional activities is engaged in the process of cleansing all material contamination from the heart. He puts the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, and all sinful contaminations are naturally washed away. Continuous thinking of the Supreme Lord makes him pure by nature. According to the Veds, there is a certain regulation that if one falls down from his exalted position, he has to undergo certain ritualistic process to purify himself. But here there is no such condition, because the purifying process is already there in the heart of devotee. Due to his purifying process is already there in the heart of the devotee due to his remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare should be continued without stoppage. This will protect a devotee from all accident fall downs. He will thus remain perpetually free from all material contaminations. Verses 32nd. O son of Prat, those who take shelter in me, though he be of lower birth, women, Vaisyas, merchants, and Sudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. It is clearly declared here by the Supreme Lord that in devotional service there is no distinction between the lower and higher classes of people in the material conception of life. There are such divisionals, but for a person engaged in transcendental devotional service to the Lord, there are not. Everyone is eligible for the supreme destination. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that even the lowest, or who are called dog eaters, can be purified by association with a pure devotee. Therefore, devotional service and the guidance of a pure devotee are so strong that there is no discrimination between the lower and higher classes of man. Anyone can take to it. The most simple man taking shelter of the pure devotee can be purified by proper guidance according to the different modes of material nature. Men are classified in the mode of goodness, Brahmans the mode of passion, Kshatriyas or administrators the mixed modes of passion and ignorance, and the mode of ignorance. Those lower than them are called Chandals, and they are born in sinful families. Generally, the association of those born in sinful families is not accepted by the higher classes, but the process of devotional service is so strong that the pure devotee of the Supreme Lord can enable people of all the lower classes to attain the highest perfection of life. This is possible only when one takes shelter of Krishna. as indicated here by the word. One has one has to take shelter completely of Krishna. Then one can become much greater than great Jananis and yogis. Verses 33rd. How much more this is so of the righteous Brahmans, the devotees, and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to his temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. In this material world, there are classification of people, but after all, this world is not a happy place for anyone. It is clearly stated here. This world is temporary and full of miseries, not habitable for any sane gentleman. This word is declared by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be temporary and full of miseries. Some philosophers, especially Mayavadi philosophers, say that this world is false, but we can understand from Bhagavad Gita that the world is not false, it is temporary. There is a difference between temporary and false. This world is temporary, but there is another world which is eternal. This world is miserable, but the other world is eternal and blissful. Arjun was born in a saintly royal family. To him also the Lord says, take to my devotional service and come quickly back to Godhead, back home. No one should remain in the temporary world, full as it is with miseries. Everyone should attach himself to the bosom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so that he can be eternally happy. The devotional service of the Supreme Lord is the only process by which all problems of all classes of man can be solved. Everyone should therefore take to Krishna consciousness and make his life perfect. Verses 34th. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee, offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. In this verse, it is clearly indicated that Krishna consciousness is the only means of being delivered from all the clutches of this contaminated material world. Sometimes Uncrippler's commentators distort the meaning of what is clearly stated here, that all devotional service should be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna, unfortunately, unscrupulous commentators divert the mind of the reader to that which is not at all feasible. Such commentators do not know that there is no difference between Krishna's mind and Krishna. Krishna is not an ordinary human being. He is absolute truth. His body, his mind, and he himself are one and absolute. It is stated in the Kram Puran as it is quoted by Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Goswami in his comments on. This means that there is no difference in Krishna, the Supreme Lord, between himself and his body. But because the commentators do not know this science of Krishna, they hide Krishna and divide his personality from his mind or from his body, although this is sheer ignorance of the science of Krishna. Some men make profit out of misleading people. There are some who are demonic. They also think of Christian but enviously, just like King Kamsa. Christian's uncle, he was thinking of Christian always, but he thought of Christian as his enemy. He was always in anxiety, wondering when Christian would come to kill him. That kind of thinking will not help us. One should be thinking of Christian in devotional love. That is bhakti. One should cultivate the knowledge of Christian continuously. What is that favorable cultivation? It is to learn from a bona fide teacher. Christian is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we have several times explained that his body is not material but is eternal, blissful knowledge. The kind of talk about Christian will help become a devotee. Understanding Christian otherwise from the wrong source will prove fruitless. One should therefore engage his mind in the eternal from the primal form of Christian, which conviction in his heart that Christian is the supreme, he should engage himself in worship. There are hundreds of thousands of temples in India for the worship of Christian, and devotional service is practiced there. When such practice is made, one has to offer obeisance to Christian. One should lower his head before the deity and engage his mind, his body, his activities, everything that will make one fully absorbed in Christian without deviation. This will help one transfer to the Christian log. One should not be deviated by unscrupulous commentators. One must engage in the 9 different processes of devotional service, beginning with hearing and chanting. About Christian, pure devotional service is the highest achievement of human society. The 7th and 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita have explained pure devotional service to the Lord that is free from speculative knowledge, mystic yoga and fruitive activities. Those who are not purely sanctified may be attracted by different features of the Lord like impersonal Brahmjyoti and localized Paramatma. But a pure devotee directly takes to the service of the Supreme Lord. There is a beautiful poem about Christian in which it is clearly stated that any person who is engaged in the worship of demigods is most unintelligent and cannot achieve at any time the supreme award of Christian. The devotee in the beginning may sometimes fall from the standard, but still he should be considered superior to all other philosophers and yogis. One who always engages in Christian consciousness should be understood to be a perfectly saintly person. His accidental, non-devotional activities will diminish and he will soon be situated without any doubt in complete perfection. The pure devotee has no actual chance to fall down because the Supreme Godhead personality takes care of his pure devotee. Therefore, the intelligent person should take directly to the process of Christian consciousness and happily live in the material world. He will eventually receive the supreme award of Krishna. Thus, and the Bhakti Vedanta purports to the 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the most confidential knowledge. Wow, that's really amazing experience. Previous chapter of 9th. Now, let's start of chapter of 10th. The opulence of the absolute versus first. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Listen again, Almighty armed Arjun, because you are my dear friend. For your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than when I have already explained. The word Bhagwan is explained thus by Prasra Muni. One who is full in the six opulences, who has full strength, full name, wealth, knowledge, beauty, and renunciation is Bhagwan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. While Krishna was present on the earth, he displayed all six opulences. Therefore, great sages like Prasra Muni have all accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, Krishna is instructing Arjun in more confidential knowledge of his opulences and his work. Previously, beginning with the 7th chapter, the Lord has already explained his different energies and how they are acting. Now, in this chapter, he explains his specific opulences to Arjun. In the previous chapter, he has clearly explained his different energies to establish devotion in firm conviction. Again, in this chapter, he tells Arjun about his manifestation and various opulences. The more one hears about the Supreme God, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. One should always hear about the Lord in the association of devotees. That will enhance one's devotional service. Discourses in the society of devotees can take place only among those who are really anxious to be in Krishna consciousness. One others cannot take part in such discourses. The Lord clearly tells Arjun that because Arjun is very dear to him, for his benefit, such discourses are taking place. Verses 2. Neither the host of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. As stated in the Brahm Samhita, Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord. No one is greater than him. He is the cause of all causes. Here it is also stated by the Lord personally that he is the cause of all the demigods and says. Even the demigods and great sages cannot understand Krishna. They can understand neither his name nor his personality. So, what is the position of the so-called scholars of this teeny planet? No one can understand why the Supreme Court comes to earth as an ordinary human being and executes such wonderful, uncommon activities. One should know then that scholarship is not the qualification necessary to understand Krishna. Even the demigods and the great sages have tried to understand Krishna by their mental speculation, and they have failed to do so. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, it is clearly said that even the great demigods are not able to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They can speculate to the limits of their imperfect senses and can reach the opposite conclusion of impersonalism, of something not manifested by the three qualities of material nature, or They can imagine something by mental speculation, but it is not possible to understand Christian by such foolish speculation. Here, the Lord indirectly says that if anyone wants to know the absolute truth, here I am present as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am the Supreme One, should know this, although one cannot understand the inconceivable Lord who is personally present. He nonetheless exists. We can actually understand Krishna who is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, simply by studying his words in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The conception of God as some ruling power or as the impersonal Brahman can be reached by persons who are in the inferior energy of the Lord. But the personality of Godhead cannot be conceived unless one is in the transcendental position, because most then cannot understand Krishna in his actual situation. Out of his causeless mercy, he descends to show favor to such speculators, yet, despite the Supreme Lord's uncommon activities, these speculators, due to contamination to the material energy, still think that the impersonal Brahman is the supreme. Only the devotees who are fully surrendered unto the Supreme Lord can understand by the grace of the Supreme Personality that He is Krishna. The devotees of the Lord do not bother about the impersonal Brahman conception of God. Their faith and devotion bring them to surrender immediately unto the Supreme Lord, and out of the causeless mercy of Krishna, they can understand Krishna. No one else can understand him. So, even great says agree what is Atma, what is the Supreme. It is He whom we have to worship. Verses 3. He who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the Supreme Lord of all the worlds. He only undiluted among one is freed from all sins, as stated in the 7th chapter. Those who are trying to elevate themselves to the platform of spiritual realization are not ordinary men. They are superior to millions and millions of ordinary men who have no knowledge of spiritual realization, but out of those actually trying to understand their spiritual situation, one who can come to the understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the proprietor of everything, the unborn, is the most successful spiritually realized person. In that stage only, when one has fully understood Krishna's superior position, can one be free completely from all sinful reactions. Here, the Lord is described by the word Aja, meaning unborn, but he is distinct from the living entities who are described in the 2nd chapter as Aja. The Lord is different from the living entities who are taking birth and dying due to material attachment. The conditioned souls are changing their bodies, but his body is not changeable. Even when he comes to this material world, he comes as the same unborn. Therefore, in the 4th chapter, it is said that the Lord, by his internal potency is not under the inferior material energy but is always in the superior energy. In this verse, the word Lok Maheshwaram indicate that one should know that Lord Krishna is the supreme proprietor of the planetary system of the universe. He was exciting before the creation, and he is different from his creation. All the demigods were created within this material world. But as far as Krishna is concerned, it is said that he is not created. Therefore, Krishna is different even from the great demigods like Brahma and Shiva. And because he is the creator of Brahma, Shiva, and all the other demigods, he is the supreme person of all planets. Shri Krishna is therefore different from everything that is created, and anyone who knows him as such immediately becomes liberated from all sinful reaction. One must be liberated from all sinful activities to be in the knowledge of the Supreme Lord. Only by devotional service can he be known, and not by any other means, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. One should not try to understand Krishna as a human being. As stated previously, only a foolish person thinks him to be a human being. This is again expressed here in a different way. A man who is not foolish, who is intelligent enough to understand constitutional position of the Godhead, is always free from all sinful reactions. If Krishna is known as a son of Devaki, then how can he be unborn? That he is also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam when he appeared before Devaki and Vasudeva. He was not born as an ordinary child. He appeared in his original form, and then he transformed himself into an ordinary child. Anything that done under the direction of Krishna is transcendental. It cannot be contaminated by material reactions, which may be auspicious or inauspicious. The conception that there are things auspicious and inauspicious in the material world is more or less a mental concoction, because there is nothing auspicious in the material world. Everything is inauspicious because the very material nature is inauspicious. We simply imagine it to be auspicious. Real auspiciousness depends on activities in Krishna consciousness in full devotion and service. Therefore, if we at all want our activities to be auspicious, then we should work under the directions of the Supreme Lord. Such directions are given in authoritative scriptures such as Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, or from a bona fide spiritual master. Because the spiritual master is the representative of the Supreme Lord, his direction is directly the direction of the Supreme Lord. The spiritual master, saintly persons and scriptures direct in the same way. There is no contradictions in these three sources. All actions done under such direction are free from the reactions of pure or impure activities of this material world. The transcendental attitude of the devotee in the performances of activities is actually that of renunciation, and that is called sannyas, as stated in the first verse of 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. One who acts as a matter of duty because he has been ordered to do so by the Supreme Lord, and who does not seek shelter in the fruits of his activities, is a pure renouncer. Anyone acting under the direction of the Supreme Lord is actually a sannyasi and a yogi, and not the man who has simply taken the dress of the sannyasi or a pseudo yogi. Verses 4 to 5, 4 to 5th. Intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. The different qualities of living entities, be they good or bad, are all created by Krishna, and they are described here. Intelligence refers to the power to analyze things in their proper perspective, and knowledge refers to understanding what is spirit and what is matter. Ordinary knowledge obtained by a university education pertains only to matter, and it is not accepted here as knowledge. Knowledge means knowing the distinction between spirit and matter. In modern education, there is no knowledge about spirit. They are simply taking care of the material elements and bodily needs. Therefore, academic knowledge is not complete. Asamaha, freedom from doubt and delusion, can be achieved when one is not hesitant, and when he understands the transcendental philosophy. Slowly but surely he becomes free from bewilderment. Nothing should be accepted blindly, everything should be accepted with care and with caution. Tolerance and forgiveness should be practiced. One should be tolerant and excuse the minor offenses of others. Satyam, truthfulness, means that facts should be presented as they are for the benefit of others. Facts should not be misrepresented according to social conventions. It is said that one can speak the truth only when it is palatable to others, but that is not truthfulness. The truth should be spoken in a straightforward way so that others will understand actually what the facts are. If a man is a thief, and if people are warned that he is a thief, and that is truth, although sometimes the truth is unpalatable, one should not refrain from speaking it. Truthfulness demands that the facts be presented as they are for the benefit of others. That is the definition of truth. Control of the senses means that the senses should not be used for unnecessary personal enjoyment. There is no prohibition engaged meeting the proper needs of the senses, but unnecessary sense enjoyment is detrimental for spiritual advancement. Therefore, the sense should be restrained from unnecessary use. Similarly, one should restrain the mind from unnecessary thought, that is called sum. One should not spend one's time pondering over earning money. That is misuse of the thinking power. The mind should be used to understand the prime necessity of human beings, and that should be presented authoritatively. The power of thought should be developed in association with persons who are authorities in the scriptures, saintly persons and spiritual masters, and those whose thinking is highly developed. Pleasure or happiness should always be in that which is favorable for the cultivation of the spiritual knowledge of Christian consciousness, and similarly, that which is painful or which causes distress is that which is unfavorable for the cultivation of Christian consciousness. Anything favorable for the development of Christian consciousness should be accepted, and anything unfavorable should be rejected. Bhavavat. Bhava. Purse should be understood to refer to the body. As far as the soul is concerned, there is neither birth nor death. That we have discussed in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Birth and death apply to one's embodiment in the material world. Fear is due to worrying about the future. A person in Christian consciousness has no fear, because by his activity he is sure to go back to the spiritual sky, back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, his future is very bright. Others, however, do not know what their future holds. They have no knowledge of what the next life holds. So, they are therefore in constant anxiety. If we want to get free from anxiety, then the best course is to understand Christian and be situated always in Christian consciousness. In that way, we will be free from all fear. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, fear is caused by our absorptions in the illusory energy, but those who are free from the illusory energy, those who are confident that they are not the material body, that they are spiritual parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who are therefore engaged in the transcendental service of the Supreme Godhead, have nothing to fear. Their future is very bright. This fear is a condition of persons who are not in Christian consciousness. Fearlessness is possible only for one in Christian consciousness. Non-violence means that one should not do anything which will put others into misery or confusion. Material activities that are promised by so many politicians, sociologists, philanthropists, etc., do not produce very good results, because the politician and philanthropists have no transcendental vision. They do not know what is actually beneficial for human society. Himsh means that people should be trained in such a way that the full utilization of the human body can be achieved. The human body is made for spiritual realization, so any moment or any commissions which do not further that and commit violence on the human body, that which furthers the future spiritual happiness of the people in general, is called non-violence. Equanimity refers to freedom from attachment and aversion. To be a very much attached or to be very much detached is not the best. This material world should be accepted without attachment or aversion. That which is favorable for prosecuting Christian consciousness should be accepted. That which is unfavorable should be rejected. That is called smart equanimity. A person is Christian consciousness has nothing to reject and nothing to accept and save in terms of its usefulness in the prosecution of Christian consciousness. Tushti satisfaction means that one should not be eager to gather more and more material goods by unnecessary activity. One should be satisfied with whatever is obtained by the grace of the Supreme Lord. That is called satisfaction. Tapas means austerity or penance. There are many rules and regulations in the Veds which apply here, like rising early in the morning and taking a bath. Sometimes it is very troublesome to rise early in the morning, but whatever voluntary trouble one may suffer in this way is called penance. Similarly, there are prescriptions for fasting on certain days of the month. One may not be inclined to practice such fasting, but because of his determination to make advancement in the science of Christian consciousness, he should accept such bodily troubles when they are recommended. However, one should not fast unnecessarily or against Vedic injunctions. One should not fast for some political purpose that is described in Bhagavad Gita as fasting in ignorance, and anything done in ignorance or passion does not lead to spiritual advancement. Everything done in the mode of goodness does advance one. However, and fasting done in terms of the Vedic injunctions enriches one in spiritual knowledge. As for charity is concerned, one should give 50% of his earnings to some good cause. And what is a good cause? It is that which is conducted in terms of Christian consciousness. That is not only a good cause but the best cause because Christian is good. His cause is also good. Thus, charity should be given to a person who is engaged in Christian consciousness. According to Vedic literature, it is enjoined that charity should be given to the Brahmans. This practice is still followed, although not very nicely in terms of the Vedic injunction. But still, the injunction is that charity should be given to the Brahmans. Why? Because they are engaged in higher cultivation of spiritual knowledge. A Brahman is supposed to devotee his whole life to understanding Brahman. Brahma Janati Brahmana. One who knows Brahman is called a Brahmana. Thus, charity is offered to the Brahmans because they are always engaged in higher spiritual service and have no time to earn their livelihood. In the Vedic literature, charity is also to be awarded to one in the renounced order of life, the sannyasi. The sannyasis beg from door to door, not for money but for missionary Purposes. Purpose. The system is that they go from door to door to awaken the householders from the slumber of ignorance, because the householders are engaged in family affairs and have forgotten their actual purpose in life, awakening their Christian consciousness. It is the business of the sannyasis to go as beggars to the householders and, and encourage them to be Christian consciousness, as it is said in the Veds. One should awake and achieve what is due him in this moment form of life. This knowledge and methods is distributed by the sannyasis. Hence, charity is to be given to the renouncer of life, to the Brahmans and similar good causes, not to any whimsical cause. Yasa's fame should be according to Lord Chaitanya, who said that a man is famous when he is known as a great devotee. That is real fame. If one has become a great man in Christian consciousness and it is known that he is truly famous, one who does not have such fame is infamous. All these qualities are manifest throughout the universe in human society, and in the society of the demigods there are many forms of humanity on other planets, and these qualities are there now for one who wants to advance in Christian consciousness. Krishna creates all these qualities, but the person develops them himself from within. One who engages in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord develops all the good qualities as arranged by the Supreme Lord. Of whatever we find good or bad, the origin is Christian. Nothing can manifest itself in this material world which is not in Christian, that is knowledge. Although we know that things are differently situated, we should realize that everything flows from Christian. Thank you so much.